Hey everybody, ronarray here, and GG finally released patch notes for very anticipated patch that we've been waiting for a few weeks, 0.20G. That patch should recover the loot system, improving loot across the whole game, and also improve a few additional mechanics. So in this video, I'm going to cover most of the patch notes, discussing what changes in the game we will see after those patch notes will go live, and also showcasing what in my opinion will change according to farm, especially to the mechanics that I already tested. Let's go. So first off, breaking news that GG rolled back the patch. Initially they tried to implement the patch at night, but some skill gems went missing, and because of that GG decided to just roll back the patch, and it will go live only today on May 1st. However, I think it's not a really long wait and we will need to wait only like half a day. And let's talk about the changes themselves. First off, GG is trying to fix drop rate, because after nerfs to the rarity, the whole changes to drop rate, and drop rate itself, especially in the endgame, felt pretty lackluster. So right now they're changing some values to improve it. And first off, they have modified the rarity value at which normal items can no longer drop. This means that unique bosses will never drop normal items, except for a select few in early game. And it's a huge buff for unique bosses, especially for pinnacles and such farm as Ritual, like King in the Mist, or Tier 4 Zash that I already tested. I think right now it will be much easier to drop unique items from those bosses, because normal items will no longer drop. Together with other changes, which is Breach Splinter's drop rate has been increased by 50%, and Delirium Splinter drop rates has been increased by 80%, together with the chance of fighting Audience with the King in Ritual is increased by 50% too, it will be much easier to just chain farm pinnacle bosses, and I hope it will be more profitable. However, I'm still absolutely sure that prices for most of the items that unique bosses will drop is probably going to go down, because entrance will cost less and more people will be able to farm it. After that, GG also halved the amount of rare gold drops, and instead of that, you will roll like rare item and will have more chances to get rare equipment or rare currency instead of gold. I think it's going to improve amount of currencies that we are dropping overall, especially in the endgame and from stronger enemies such as bosses. Gold piles are now twice as large, so we will have the same amount of gold, which is pretty nice, so just more currency and more equipment. Gold, magic, currency, quality currency, flask and charms and runes are now much less likely to drop from monsters with higher item rarity. And that's good. That's another good buff for map bosses. Because map bosses usually have a high item rarity and you will have much more chances to drop good currency from the bosses themselves. And it will give you about 20 to 30% of more rare currency, exalted orbs, alchemy orbs, and everything like that. I also think that change is probably going to cause an inflation, because divines currently are not really dropping that often, but exalted orbs are going to drop from bosses like from a pinata, and that way exalt is probably going to go down and price for the divines is going to go up. So trade all your exalts for divines right now where the price is still pretty good. Tier 2 rare items now drops 4 more time often. It will just lead to more rare item drops, some of them will be good, some of them will be not that amazing. However, Tier 3 to 5 now drops 30% more often, so even better items are going to drop more often as well, and genuinely it should improve your overall experience, especially if you're playing solo self-found or if you're checking all rares on the ground. Tier 2 and higher magic items now drop around 5 more often. I don't think that magic items are going to change a lot of things, so that's probably a very small change. And there's also like low modifier scaling of tiered magic have been significantly improved. Tier 5 magic items will usually roll the highest modifier available, which is kinda good, and those will probably increase amount of good bases for crafting, which are basically dropping magic. So all of those drop changes mostly improving the situation from bosses, and I think will help amount of exalted that you're currently dropping during the map. And you will also get more rares if it affects you heavily, so maybe some of them will be good. After that, unique monsters, except for a few unique bosses. At the start of Act 1, all unique monsters will always drop a rare item, which is pretty good, some of them could be nice. And in campaign you only get the guaranteed rare items the first time you kill each boss, so you can't farm bosses in the campaign anymore, it seems. And in maps you will always get it. Those changes are pretty small and we don't really need to focus on them. The next big thing is Asmirian Wisps. GG promised a very big buff for Asmirian Wisp for some time. So rare monsters possessed by Asmirian Wisp now always drop a rare item, which is alright bonus, but I don't think it's enough to just make sure that more people will even invest into Asmirian Wisps. And fix the bug where the first Wisp in the Grailwood didn't have item rarity or quantity stats. I honestly don't think that those changes to Asmirian Wisps are pretty much enough. So most of the time Asmirian Wisps are still going to be pretty unpopular, but more people will focus on farming unique bosses and bosses overall right now, because a lot of things in the eye drop and changes are pretty much improving the boss loot. Unfortunately, Asmirian Wisps are currently looking like a letdown to me. It's been not a lot of point to use them before, and right now, not a lot of things are even changing. So GG also made a few small changes to rare and magic chests right now, so chests are going to have 100% more quantity and rarity in the endgame, which is pretty nice. However, loot from chests are not the main part in the endgame because you're not encountering too many chests. And even with those buffs, I think it will be a minor improvement. Another interesting question is Storm Boxes. Storm Boxes now have increased item quantity and item rarity, guaranteed a rare item as well as getting a further 50% more item quantity and item rarity in Coil, and 100% more in the endgame. That buff is just amazing from Storm Boxes. I already did a video testing Storm Boxes in maps, and they've been not a total disaster, but not amazing as well, and pretty average. In the end, I decided that it's just easier to invest into pack size, but with those buffs like 100% more quantity and rarity, together with research Storm Boxes will now have a much higher chance to drop rare currency instead of magic currency. I think Storm Boxes should be retested again, because maybe they will be much better after the patch. There's also reduced the variance of the number of items Storm Boxes drop, and they should more consistently drop a good number of items. It sounds pretty nice, but it's kinda hard to predict how good it's going to be. But boxes are looking much promising because 100% more quantity and rarity sounds very good, especially for researchers Storm Boxes right now. For the Sekhemas, there's only a few changes. We will have regular bronze chests now have the same base balance as rare chest. Silver and gold chest increase item rarity and item quantity by values significantly higher than before, so probably farming Sekhemas for something more than just like basic loot will be a good idea. And you will also have Arcanist chest currency and royal chest jewels are much more common. So farming jewels from the Sekhemas is probably going to be more popular right now. Sekhema farm been pretty popular before, and I think with all those changes, even more people are going to farm Sekhemas. So I consider that a pretty significant buff. I also hope that price of basic jewels will probably go down because more jewels are going to drop from the Sekhemas themselves. GG also decided to buff Trial of Chaos. In my opinion, Trial of Chaos has been a very stable, even if a little boring farm that provided a pretty decent amount of currency before. And right now, as you continue to increase the level you play the Trial of Chaos, corrupted rares are phased out from rewards and rare currency stacks are phased in. That's very good, because rare currency stacks will give you some Chaos Orbs, will give you some Exalted Orbs, and all of that together will make Trial Chaos run even more profitable, even considering that Tikaba price is still pretty high. Moving forward, they also have Expedition changes. Expedition Magic and Rare chests now have the same base balance as other endgame Magic and Rare chests, which is very good because as we've seen before, chests been buffed, Rare Magic chests, so Expedition is pretty much getting huge buff too, for more quantity and rarity from them. Normal Expedition chest has also been improved, which is good. We also fixed a bug where increased chest item rarity from Expedition Remnants was not multiplying correctly. It's probably a small bug, so I don't think it will change a lot of things. They buffed the rewards for most Expedition Remnants mods, which is good, but we currently don't see the numbers for it. They doubled the number of expedition artifacts that drop, which is absolutely amazing because expedition been pretty popular just for artifacts farm before. And they also increased the amount of exotic coinage that drop by 50%, which is absolutely huge. I think with all those changes, expedition will be significantly more popular as a farming mechanic right now. I'm probably going to do a separate video just testing it. They also have several expedition remnants downsized and been adjusted, and 2 new expedition remnant upside modifiers has been added, which is nice in my opinion. And there's also expedition remnant modifiers that cause monsters to have 100% chance to avoid being chilled, frozen, ignited and shocked has been replaced, which is kinda nice, but I don't think it will make a lot of changes. For the Delirium, the buffs are huge as well. We have Delirium's percentage scaling with waves in Simulacrum has been reduced, so monsters will be weaker in Simulacrum. Also, they're giving more item rarity per depth in Delirium encounters. Now it's 2.5 times more than it's been before, making Delirium is pretty necessary mechanic to farm in the endgame. And they also changed modifiers in Simulacrum, so it will be easier right now to farm it, but I don't really think that farming Simulacrum right now is very popular, and I don't think there's enough changes to justify farming it, but adding Delirium to your maps is probably worth it. I already commented on accessibility to Pinnacle content and Atlas passive, so more Breach Splinter, more Delirium Splinter, and more audiences with the King, which is good. There's also some player changes, mostly small changes to Trinity, which is more like an adjustment than proper buff or proper nerf. Bear Anguish doesn't charm no longer guarantees a critical hit, and I don't think it's going to heavily hard Bear Anguish builds. And there's also small changes to mana cost. Bursting Plague right now is dealing like a little less damage, and small changes to other things like Stark Conja, Head Unique Helmet, Lightning Bolt base radius is a little higher, Impale inflicted on player lasts 4 seconds before it's been never expired, and on non-players is not affected to that change. So I think in terms of player changes and build changes, there's not a lot of things to comment on. GG is currently not touching the balance and they'll probably keep all the buffs and nerfs to the next league. And they're just focusing on improving the loot because that's what that patch is about. They also have other changes and improvements. Crystalline Core that no longer obtainable has been deleted, that's small but nice. Scepters, Wands and Staves can now correctly roll an additional rune socket as corruption outcome, which is pretty nice too. The number of monsters in Trial of Chaos area below level 65 has been reduced, probably it will be easier to get your ascendancy there. Lip Slam used by Val Imps and Unearthed Archons can now be dodged, blocked and evaded, which is pretty nice, before they can one-shot characters with pretty decent evasion. Bladelash Transcendent melee damage has been reduced. I don't think it's a big change, but it could be a little better for survivability. And most changes to monsters are pretty much just making it less damage or like dodgeable or just melee damage going down too, so I think survivability for most builds will properly increase. They also added checkpoints to Twisted Domain, which should be pretty nice, and world map icon to Titanfalls. I think most of the other change improvements are pretty small, and instead of that, the biggest changes are just here to the loot. So talking about how it's going to change the game, I think Delirium and Expedition right now are going to be significantly more powerful in terms of farming mechanics, and a lot of people will farm bosses, and maybe strong boxes are also coming back. So I'm probably going to test Expedition separately together with strong boxes, and I think both focused mechanics are going to feel amazing now too. However, Asmirian Wisps, in my opinion, is a little letdown because there's not a lot of changes to them, and I think it still will be a pretty underwhelming mechanic. So instead of that, just focusing on strong boxes, Expedition, Trial of Sekhemas is probably going to be a better idea. We will see how it's going to affect the economy in a few days. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and let me know in the comment what do you even think about the patch themselves. Do you think that amount of buffs is pretty much enough to justify that long wait, and is it saving the loot situation in your eyes? I will be pretty happy to read what you're thinking there. Thank you very much for watching again, and ronarray out.